Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
The cost for virtually everything is on the rise.
Surviving inflation. We're talking about actual strategies here to really get more bang for your buck. From flights,
you need to be one step ahead of the airlines.
To food. That's like cutting your food budget almost in half. Little things to save big bucks.
You can be adding real monthly value back to your household bottom line.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. Well, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, when walking through grocery stores, have you been noticing bare shelves again? We certainly saw it during the pandemic. Do you see help wanted signs plastered everywhere around town? Because people are trying to get staff back. And if you've traveled recently, oh my God, you've experienced last-minute cancellations from staff shortages or delays due to fuel issues. Shortages like these are clearly stressful. With higher demand for goods and services comes rising prices, right? Now, this has forced many people to shop more carefully, pull back on spending, and face high bills for groceries, rent, utilities. And how about filling up your car? Take a look.
The cost for virtually everything is on the rise.
I just can't afford to buy anything.
Mom won't buy me any candy because it's so expensive.
Higher prices aren't the only problems facing consumers. Bare shelves are another problem.
When I first started looking for baby formula, I panicked. We went into stores and it was like some apocalyptic event had happened. The shelves were bare, nothing was there, and I had to recruit friends and family basically and just have people scouting constantly.
The problem isn't just the prices of items on the shelves, it's finding and stocking them.
After the pandemic, I'm seeing a lot of bare shelves, and it's kind of the new normal.
Supply chain disruptions have starved stores of staples, from the produce aisle to the paper products.
There was a tampon shortage for a while. I mean, there have been a lot of things that have been in shortage.
This year, due to staffing shortages, weather delays, and also the expensive airline prices, it is even more hectic than normal.
We were supposed to leave at 10:55 p.m. to go from Denver to LAX. They put us on a flight then to San Jose, not knowing where our luggage is going to be. We didn't leave till 5:30 in the morning the next day, and I was traveling with my 2 minor kids.
Unfortunately, economists predict it won't be over anytime soon, with inflation remaining high throughout the year.
I know it's hitting families. We need to fix this.
Well, if like everyone, you're feeling the pinch, listen up today, because this is part 2 of our series, How to Survive Inflation. Smart spending during shortages. The points guy, Brian Kelly, is here with all kinds of ways to stretch your dollar. Now, listen, I hate it when I watch these shows that give you a bunch of theory. So this is a day to talk about real strategies to really get more bang for your buck, to really get your family through this time. So we're talking about actual strategies here. So pay attention, because this is going to make a difference. Take a look at Brian Kelly.
Points Guy is here with his tips on how you can save some money despite the high cost of gas and airline tickets. Millions of Americans are hitting the road and heading to the airport. And the U.S. government reported that in April alone, the cost of airfare surged more than 18%, the largest monthly increase on record. Mr. Points Guy, answer the big question. How can we save some money? It doesn't seem like there's any savings out there.
There are deals out there, and this is what I'd like to push people. Instead of having your mind set on a destination, choose your destination where the deals are.
So what should travelers start to consider as they get ready to get on a flight?
If you're delayed in the airport, need to get a hotel room, usually the airlines won't cover that, but your credit card can. So always look to your credit card coverage.
Brian Kelly, you're the best.
Your flight was delayed getting here, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because that's going to happen. I mean, it's going to happen.
Would have it. 4.5 hours. Chaos at the gate, people screaming, crying, clapping. But that's, kind of what's happening these days. 25% of flights are canceled. So you've really got to enter the airport with the mindset, and you've got to look out for yourself, because the airlines are not going to do it for you.
There are things to do. If you get to an airport and the gate is stacked up and they start flashing, flight delayed or whatever, and people are standing in line forever to get up and ask a question. You don't have to do that, right?
You don't. And everyone needs to use, it's a free tool I use all the time. It's called FlightAware, and it's an app. And what you do is you track your flight. And before I leave for the airport, I look in FlightAware, I put in my flight number, and I see, where is my plane coming from? So yesterday, my flight was actually coming from Athens, Greece to Newark. It was going to have a couple hours on the ground and then take us here to LA. So that flight was delayed leaving Athens. So off the bat, before I left my house, I said, this flight's going to be delayed, right? So, and that's the type of stuff you need to be one step ahead of the airlines. I knew my flight was delayed hours before most other people did. Once in the airport, I was actually in the airline lounge, and a lot of credit cards offer it. These days, you might want to look into a credit card that offers lounge access because the terminals are chaos. Right. But the good thing about the lounge, yeah, there's nice free food, but the agents that work the lounge, they're the best agents at the airline. Right. So while the gate was chaos, I'm up in the airline lounge chatting with the agent, and she's giving me the inside scoop. Hey, catering hasn't even been on the plane yet. You've got at least 25 minutes. So not everyone can go to the lounge, and I know it's not cheap to do that, but as travelers, you might want to invest in that access, because that inside scoop with the airline lounge can also help you if your flight's delayed and you need to rebook.
So when they change or cancel a flight, and so there are 300 people standing at the gate, you don't have to stand at that gate, right?
Absolutely
you can go
not.
Where?
You can go anywhere you want in the airport. I actually was sitting, the airline lounge actually closed, so I was sitting down near the gate. But almost every airline now they have really good apps that will tell you when the flight starts to board. So, you can take a seat, calm down, find a quiet space, especially if you've got kids. I saw so many kids at the gate area last night crying, and take your kids out of that scenario, right? And the same thing with boarding. Everyone wanted to get on the flight after the delay, but everyone's going to get on that plane, right? You don't need to rush in and get in. So I think it's really about a mindset and trying to teach yourself not to get so worked up over things you can't control.
If you're on American and they've canceled that flight, and so everybody's scrambling, you can go to any other airline and book the next American flight, right?
Well, yeah. So what I say is, when the flight gets canceled and it's chaos and there's a 100-person line waiting to talk to the one agent that's at the airport, don't wait. Well, you can wait in the line, but get your phone out and go online. Almost every airline app will let you rebook yourself. So try to do that first. It can be very easy. If you can't get to where you need to go, I recommend just rebook yourself. You can use frequent flyer miles. Buy the last remaining flights. If you've got to get to a wedding or a cruise and the airline's not going to get you there, you will get a full refund, in cash of your flight. So book yourself on another airline in order to just get out if you really need to go somewhere. Because if you wait in that long line in the airport, chances are by the time you talk to that agent, all the remaining seats on the next flight out are going to be booked up.
So you can go book that online or call their international number.
Yeah, so that's another tip I like. We've all called the airlines and it's a 5-hour wait. You can often call the international number at the airline. So, Delta Airlines has a Mexico City office, and those agents speak English. Or, you can Skype to the Singapore line. So when there's weather events in the US and you can't get through, call the international lines. Or a lot of times, airlines are really good with social media. DM them, some better than others, but you can DM them and say, hey, here's my record locator. Can you put me on another flight?
Okay, so you don't need to fight the crowd. You can run the crowd by going to another gate, online, or an international number that's not busy.
Exactly.
And that essentially puts you to the front of the line.
Exactly.
All right, well, we're going to talk about credit cards too, because we're going to see how you can actually use a credit card to make your life much easier if you need to rebook a canceled flight, and how you can still make your dream trip during inflation. Because these points, these loyalty programs, that sort of thing, that's money. We're going to talk about that next.
It ended up being like a 23-hour travel day that was supposed to be 2 or 3.
Does the airline owe her anything? Tomorrow, is America too high on marijuana? Whether you like it or not, we're going to look at the science.
We have an industry making money off of saying this is harmless. It's a joke.
It's not a joke. You can't walk into a dispensary at 12 years old and buy marijuana.
Cannabis has not been shown to cause a fatal overdose. Cannabis use does cause suicidal thinking and sadly suicide in my son.
That's tomorrow. Then, on Monday, sextortion.
He said, if you do not do what I say, I will ruin your life.
You think your child might not be a victim? They can be right now. That's Monday.
Airlines have canceled more than 3,000 flights and delayed another 14,000 more in the U.S. over the last 2 days.
Not just a pilot shortage, it's a worker shortage. Passport control officers, immigration officers, security checkpoint officers.
Stateside, it may be months before things improve.
The stresses of traveling seem to be at an all-time high. There is not a quick fix for the staff shortage airlines are facing because it can take thousands of dollars and years of training to hire new pilots, also flight attendants. So is traveling really worth it? Well, Maddie's joining us virtually with her recent travel nightmare story. Maddie, how you doing?
Hey, Dr. Phil, I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, I'm well. You seem to have gone through one of these nightmare stories. Tell us what happened.
You know, it was a funny experience that I end up laughing about now, but at the time it was a little bit stressful. I was flying out of the Burlington airport and we had been advised to get on the earliest flight possible, that those flights tend to be least likely to get canceled. So I got up bright and early at 3 a.m., was planning on taking a direct flight to Atlanta, and that ended up getting canceled. So hung out in the airport for probably a good 6 hours and ended up being rerouted on a 3-flight trip back to Atlanta. I think I ended up getting back into my hometown at about 2 a.m. So it ended up being like a 23-hour travel day that was supposed to be maybe 2 or 3.
Good Lord.
You could certainly see the chaos around me unfolding, and some people handled it better than others.
Yeah, Brian, she said people were yelling and crying and upset and all that. Does the airline owe her anything?
You know, the airline, if they delay your flight, they owe you refreshments and they should give you meal vouchers. But unfortunately, in the U.S., we don't have a passenger bill of rights. Now, if you're traveling in Europe, they have what's called EU 261 compensation. It's a calculation. You know, if your flight's delayed or canceled, they owe you cash. The industry lobby has been very strong in the U.S. saying, no, that's just going to increase prices. So really, when your flight is significantly delayed, all you're owed is a full refund. Or their best, they have to make the best effort to get you where you're going. Some carriers like JetBlue, you should look in the contract of carriage. That's what dictates the terms. JetBlue is a little bit more generous with their policy. They may give you a $200 voucher if you're delayed, but the bottom line is you don't have a ton of recourse. But where you do get recourse is from your credit card. So a lot of credit cards nowadays have what's called trip delay or interruption coverage. And in Maddie's case, she could have gotten up to $600 in compensation. So it depends on your credit card, but everyone watching right now should check to see, do I have this coverage? And the next time you book a flight, make sure you're booking with the credit card that automatically has it included. Most of the major travel credit cards, airline cards do have it. And it's included in the price of, using that credit card. So she could have gotten reimbursement to go to restaurants or even get a hotel if the delay gets really, over 6 hours.
So what are the best cards?
So for the travel interruption protection, Chase Sapphire is a no-brainer. Chase Sapphire Preferred and Reserved are kind of like the gold standard of travel protection. They also have what's primary car rental coverage, so you can save and not get dinged by the rental car companies when it comes to all those bogus extra fees. Amex does have these protections as well. They've got a little caveat that you have to book a round-trip flight. So with everything, the devil's in the details, but Capital One Venture is also really good coverage when it comes to the trip interruption. Points are a currency that will make your life better. You can be adding real monthly value back to your household bottom line.
What's the most you can get back on gas for your car? My guest today, Senator Scott Wiener. Okay, now let's talk about points. You say Maddie could have gotten like up to $600, but you say it's good to book trips with points if you have them.
Absolutely. So, talking about inflation, what we're seeing is, and just, before getting too much into the economics of the airlines, but the airlines make billions of dollars selling points to credit card companies that then offer it to consumers to use their cards, right? So the airlines make a lot of money, and consumers, we have all these points from using credit cards. Over the years, the airlines have gotten very smart. Instead of 25,000 miles for a free flight, which you used to be able to get 10 years ago, you're looking at 60,000 miles one way for economy tickets in the U.S. Now, you can still get deals. It's not all doomsday, but we're seeing inflation in terms of the amount of miles needed. So what I like to implore consumers is use your points today, because they're going to lose value over time. And one of the key things that happened over the pandemic is most airlines added a lot of really consumer-friendly rules for when you're using points, where you can get all your points and taxes back with no fees or anything. So unlike when you pay for a ticket and the airline might give you a voucher that you might be able to use and it might expire, when you're using points and you need to cancel your flight, say a relative gets sick, you get all those points back. So it's kind of like booking with a refundable ticket. So points can save you a lot of money just by not having to buy airfare, but give you that maximum flexibility, which we all need these days.
Okay, now when you use a credit card, points are points, not just for airline travel. You can use those points for a lot of things these days, right?
Yeah, and what people need to understand is there's a lot of different credit cards out there. Points are a currency that will make your life better. Now, I recommend getting transferable points. So this is, the Amex Golds. If you're a renter, there's a card called Bilt Rewards where you earn points on rent with no fees. Also, you can use those points to pay rent, which I know a lot of people like these days with budgets being so tight. Or at the end of the day, even if you don't want to travel, getting a cash back card. Citi Double Cash is kind of the top tier. You're going to get 2% back on everything you spend in terms of cash. So no matter what you want to use points on, get a credit card that gives you points. But the key is you must pay your bill in full every month. Because if you're paying interest on those balances, you're negating the value of all of those points. So got to be fiscally, responsible, put everything on a credit card, get those valuable points, and then pay it off in full at the end of the month so you don't get hit with any fees.
Well, you'd pay it cash. If you were using cash, you'd be spending it.
Exactly. So instead of using cash, keep the cash in your checking account, put it on a credit card, earn those valuable points, and then use that same cash and pay off the credit card. That's how you win at the points game.
So if a family has a budget of $50,000 a year and they put all of that on a credit card, pay it off every month, then they can get like 2% of that back at the end of the year.
Absolutely, in just pure cash.
In pure cash.
In travel rewards, at the Points Guy, we teach people how to get even more than that in value. And the key thing with credit cards is get a credit card that offers you more. You want to be earning more than 1 point per dollar. So for example, like that Amex Gold card I talked about, it gives you 4 points per dollar on supermarkets, as well as dining. So choose a card that rewards you in the categories you spend the most in, whether it's gas or, but there's pretty much any category you could think of. You can Google, the Points Guy, best credit card for gas. And our team breaks down the very best cards for each category.
Okay, so what's the most you can get back on gas for your car?
You can get up to 6% cash back using certain credit cards. There are even credit cards that this sounds too confusing to a lot of people, they're credit cards that will automatically reward you for the categories you spend the most in. So if you don't feel like doing the math, the Freedom Flex card by Chase is one of those where they automatically look at what you spend the most in and they'll give you the most cash back.
So 6% on gas. So if it's, that's 6 cents on a dollar.
It adds up very quickly. And that's why when you get into the points game, it takes a little bit of time to get the fundamentals down, but you can be adding real monthly value back to your household bottom line.
Because we calculated before, if the median income in America is $47,000, and after taxes, that's like $700 a week, you're talking about some percentages here that can make up the difference in inflation at 8 or 9%.
Absolutely.
It makes up the difference.
Absolutely. And plus, on top of just earning points, a lot of credit cards will give you sign-up bonuses worth up to $1,000. Even that Citi Double Cash, which has no annual fee, they'll give you $200 cash just to get your account started. And what I want to let people know is people will say, well, getting credit cards, my credit's going to crash. It's the exact opposite. Your FICO score actually increases when the two biggest factors are paying your bills on time and paying them off in full. So if you're smart and pay your bills off in full every month and you get a new credit card, the thing is your available credit increases, and when you pay it off, it's that debt to credit ratio that FICO really looks at. If you're responsible and pay that in full every month, your credit score will shoot up.
What's the best domestic airline if you had to pick one?
Well, at the Points Guy, we just came out with we do an analysis. We look at reliability, because a good airline gets you where you need to go. We look at customer care, airlines with the fewest amount of
best
complaints.
Domestic airline.
4 years in a row, Delta.
Are more ways to stretch your dollar next? Think of something in your budget you could do without if you were really prioritizing. Closed captioning provided by...
High inflation is not only squeezing family budgets across America, it's also hitting school cafeterias.
Supply chain disruptions and the spiraling cost of key ingredients has forced school districts to pull back or make substitutions. At some schools, no more hamburgers or chicken patty sandwiches.
That tray of food I get at lunch, that costs more to make than it did last year.
Yes.
Significantly?
Yes, we are up about 15, sometimes 20% in inflation rates.
We're talking about ways to stretch your dollar. And I want to add economist and professor from Florida Gulf Coast University, Dr. Victor Clark, to our conversation. And I said we're talking about actual strategies, not theories, things you can do to make sure your family gets through this time. So, Dr. Clark, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
How long is this going to last? When are we going to start seeing this inflation back off?
I hope we start to see some significant reductions in the inflation rate very, very soon. I think one problem is that the Federal Reserve System, who controls how much money is out there flowing through the system, they haven't been as prepared to fight the inflation they were getting started a couple of years ago. So it seems like they're stepping on the brakes now with some rate increases in interest rates, which I know nobody likes, but it can be the one thing they've got, the one tool to try to slow down this inflation.
Okay. And we've been talking about credit cards and using points and that sort of thing instead of cash. Do you agree that that's a good strategy?
I agree that that's a great strategy, but at this point, with nearly 10% annual inflation rates, it's really important to weigh carefully every single expense that you make. And just like when you're trying to watch your weight, people tell you to write down everything that you're eating every day. It's a good idea to write down everything that you're spending money on every day, because you'll identify some places where you can cut.
How many of you here right now, just think for a second, can think of something in your budget that you habitually have that you could do without if you were really prioritizing? Give me some examples.
I think we can go to the grocery store, make our own food for dinner, lunches, instead of just going out and spending more money.
Always forgetting to cancel my monthly subscriptions.
Yeah, monthly subscriptions. Who else? What else could you do without? Yeah.
Impulse purchases on Amazon.
Yeah, impulse purchases. Yeah. When people are now facing this crunch and they're trying to create cash to live on, to bridge this gap, however long it lasts, I've had a lot of people ask me, the used car market's really hot right now. Does it make sense to sell their car?
Especially,
a car?
Yeah, especially in these high inflation times. I know that all the cars are more expensive. All of the used cars are more expensive. All of the new cars are more expensive. But if you're currently driving a car that is more car than you actually need, it might be worth looking at selling it and buying a more affordable car as long as it gets things done for you, because that money that you have left, it's like money earned.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're selling high and you're going to have to buy high.
That's right.
So you got to be going from big to small.
That's exactly right.
Or newer to older in some way. But do you buy new cars? Is that smart?
Here's the thing. Every car, once it new or used, once it leaves that lot, it's a used car. You might congratulate yourself on the new car you just bought, but the minute you leave the lot, oh, it's a used car, and it'll price like a used car also. So everybody drives a used car. Even people who have brand new ones, everybody drives a used car. So the thing to think about is what's your monthly cost of owning and maintaining that vehicle. Sometimes repair expenses add up and we feel really bad about that because we see the money leaving. But sometimes keeping a serviceable car, even if you have to pay for regular repairs, is more cost effective over the course of a year than a car payment on a new car.
Dr. Phil, I've got to just add, when you're buying a new car, part of the negotiation be putting as much as possible on a credit card. Now, at the dealership, they'll say, no, we can't take credit card. Some will say, yeah, maybe up to 5 or 10K, but you can always negotiate. Get the best price locked in that you're comfortable paying, and then you say, well, if you want to close this deal today, I want to put $10,000 on my credit card. And they may stonewall you, but if you really make that a negotiation point, you can earn a lot of points. Once again, with cash you were going to use to buy the car, put it on your credit card, get those points, and then pay the card off.
Another good negotiating strategy is don't talk about things like the financing or what you're going to offer in trade if that's your intention. Negotiate first and get the very best price you can get, and then talk about the financing later.
Yeah, they like to finance it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to meet a young mother who had to drive to 5 different states in search of formula to feed her 7-month-old baby boy. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to have Dr. Clark talk to us about some ways that you can get more bang for your buck. We'll be right back. Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. Is America too high on marijuana?
Marijuana is far safer than alcohol. Cannabis use does cause suicidal thinking, and sadly, suicide in my son.
That's tomorrow. Closed captioning provided by...
We return now to the nationwide baby formula shortage.
The latest data shows nearly 1/3 of powdered formula products are still out of stock nationwide. The shortage began when one of the major U.S. suppliers, Abbott, closed its largest plant. The facility is back up and running, but it could be at least 2 months before families get the relief they need to keep their children fed.
The struggle is real for Gianna, who has been driving 10+ hours per week, sometimes to 5 different states in search of formula to feed her baby.
Friday night, we were completely out of our formula. We went to every store in our area twice, and still the shelves were empty. From 2 a.m. to 3 p.m., Jameson refused to eat any other formula and even breast milk. We had to drive over an hour and a half away, and we were finally able to find some formula on the shelves. I honestly can't even tell you how many stores we went into looking for formula. The formula shortage is the scariest thing in the world to me right now, and it was so heartbreaking watching him refuse to eat.
Well, I can't even imagine what you feel like as a mother, and your baby won't eat. You can't find what the baby will eat.
Right.
And this actually affected your son's development.
Correct, yeah. He's underweight currently.
Where is he percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise, we just went about a week ago. I believe he's 32 percentile, and, you know, that's on the pretty low side.
Yeah, what's the lowest he's been?
I believe it was 25.
Okay. So he's actually been, you consider, malnourished.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And Dr. Clark, why is this happening?
One challenge that we face is regulators like the Food and Drug Administration. Their job is to make sure that young babies are safe and protected. But it also means that there are lots of rules and regulations, rules about things like what the labeling on the package of a baby formula needs to look like, or nutritional requirements regarding protein and fat and vitamins and minerals. And the rules are so rigorous that we've ended up in a situation where we only have about 4 major producers of baby formula in the U.S. They supply about 90% of what American families buy, and we import only about 2%. So in an effort to keep American children safe and prevent a health crisis, we actually in some ways caused a health crisis when Abbott Labs in Michigan couldn't produce, and they normally supply about half of the American market.
And you can order this with a credit card, right?
You can actually. So I'm actually an expecting father. So my heart breaks for you just hearing your story. I actually just last night started, while I was delayed at the airport, I was like, I should probably start ordering formula now. And The European formulas are easy to get, but they're god-awfully expensive. But what you can do is a lot of them are sold on Amazon, and Amex, Chase, City Points, Bilt Rewards. You can actually use your credit card points for Amazon credit. It's not going to be the best bang for your point, but if you're in a pinch or if you know people with points that might want to help you out, I know the formula I ordered delivers in 2 to 7 days. So I don't know if it's the formula your son would like, but it is an option out there. And for new parents who don't want to go to the Maldives or travel, using your points for household necessities is not a bad idea.
If you order it individually, do you have a tariff?
Yeah, it is possible to purchase it personally, but you get in big trouble with Customs and Border Protection if you buy a lot for import to sell commercially. In fact, before the shortage, back in 2021, Customs and Border Protection intervened and they seized 588 cases of baby formula that was worth about $30,000 because that's how serious they are about fighting the war on baby formula, not the war on drugs, but the war on baby formula.
Yeah, let's stop that baby formula because we don't want this child growing up healthy and strong. What the hell are they thinking? All right, coming up, what Dr. Clark says is your ultimate weapon in fighting and surviving inflation. We'll talk about that next. Have you...
The Port of Los Angeles is once again seeing bottlenecks that could disrupt the supply chain to businesses and consumers nationwide. This time, it's because of a shortage of rail workers.
Over the last 3 years, railroads have lost 20% of their employees.
Is it going to get any worse?
That number continues to grow every day, every week.
Inflation and shortages aren't going away anytime soon. And economist Dr. Clark says, save $100 a month if you can. And Brian, the points guy, says you can get cash back if you make the right credit card decisions. And, they may sound like, well, yeah, I wish I had $100 a month to save. I'm coming up short. But look, both of these gentlemen, when I was going through all of the things that you were saying, it really came down to asking yourself some really hard questions about prioritizing what your needs are, because we get into habits of certain behaviors and we take for granted what we need versus what we've just gotten in the habit of doing. Americans throw away 40% of our food. And that means if we decided to eat all of the food that we have, save it, freeze it, 40%, that's almost like cutting your food budget almost in half.
Yeah, it requires a lot of focus and discipline right now. And sometimes if you feel like you haven't been focused on saving money, there's never a better time than right now to take some first steps.
Don't just accept the fact that things are expensive. There are clever ways where you can plan fun trips, push yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit, and save a lot of money. And I'll just add too, even with road trips, I use an app called Gas Buddy that will sniff out the cheapest gas. And especially when you're crossing state lines, you can save substantially. So getting the right apps and sniffing out those deals, those savings start to add up.
Yeah, Shana, you had a question.
So I was just wondering, how many credit cards are too many?
It's a great question. Well, I'll start off with saying I have 25 credit cards and I have a near perfect credit score.
25 credit cards?
I don't recommend anyone here going out and getting 25 cards. I've done this game for a long time. But I think, having 3 solid credit cards that, you always want a couple different types in case one's not accepted. But what I implore you is start small, get a credit card, a no annual fee card, and check your credit, and you'll realize what I'm saying is true. Once you start paying it in full, your score goes up. A lot of kids in college, don't wait till you graduate to get a credit card. Get it while you're in school. And even having your parents add you as an additional card holder can increase your credit score. So start small, be responsible. If you get a card and you're like, okay, I'm not going to go out and just go on a crazy vacation, then, you add another, I know people who get 2, 3 new credit cards a year, each with 60 to 100,000 point bonuses. And all of a sudden you're raking in enough points to travel essentially for free.
Yes, sir.
Well, this is kind of a good segue. I'm just curious. I'm retired and live on a fixed income.
and I've already cut back on restaurants and travel and things. Do you have any other suggestions on things that I could do to try and deal with this inflation spiral?
Yeah, it's just that. There's a difference between what we want, what we need, and what we can afford. That's three different kinds of math. What we want's one kind of math, what we need's another kind of math, then what we can afford is the real math. And we really, until we sit down and query ourselves on what we can actually afford, we don't ask ourselves the hard questions about what we can cut. Okay, that gives you a lot to think about. Next, I sat down with a black sheep and his mother to work out their differences. We'll see how that turned out after the break. Something you want to do something about, a cause you want to join, a social injustice you want to protest, but you don't know where to start. Well, this is the place. Text PHIL, P-H-I-L, at 88500. When it comes to workplace drama, no one knows it better than my next guest. Margaret is a high-powered attorney who has hired her rather aimless black sheep son, Todd, as her law firm's house investigator. Why? Well, his license was revoked due to some questionable behavior, and he basically needed a job. There's so much tension between mother and son that they reached out to me, Dr. Phil, to make a house call. Take a look. Today I'm making a home visit in Portland, Oregon with mother and son, Margaret and Todd Wright. Now, she's an attorney and he's a detective, and they are facing a very difficult dilemma.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Phillip. And thank you for coming to Portland. And you are correct. I do need some advice on how to deal with a child who basically has no grasp on maturity or on adult life. I mean, a problem child.
A problem child? Am I the problem child? Wait, who are we talking about?
Actually, the reason we're here.
Yeah, the reason that we're here is because I wrote to Dr. Phil and I said I'm having a problem with my mom, who is very controlling and critical and demanding.
Do you see what I mean? You came all this way to help us, and yet here he is.
This is not a problem child episode. I was told this is problem mom.
I'd like to get a word in edgewise here, if that's possible.
Yes, Todd, please let the man speak.
I'm not the one
You are talking
You're
right
the one
now.
talking.
No, I'm
you
not. Yes,
are the one
You are
talking. Literally right now.
Oh, all
Phil?
right. Wow. See, now the real reason I'm here is to talk about the challenges of working together.
You see, the important thing is I am the boss. He's the employee. So where's the challenge?
Can we talk privately?
That is not how these visits work. Let me just clarify. You're an attorney. He's the detective investigating your cases.
Well, the important thing here is that they are my cases. I mean, this investigation thing is just neither here nor there.
It's my whole career, but...
Sounds a bit like you think your son is the goose to your maverick.
I don't watch Game of Thrones, so I really can't comment.
I have a question. Am I getting paid for this? Because my Paramount Plus account has been suspended for non-payment, and I'd really like a record of this.
All of your accounts have been suspended for non-payment.
You know what? I think we just may be running out of time here.
Wait, hold on a second. I have a question. Are you and Oprah tight? Do you guys ever like swap jets and race each other, see which one's faster? That'd be so cool.
Todd, you don't need to harass Dr. Phil with all of these personal questions.
I don't know if he hangs out with Oprah.
Oh, if he does, I would love to go to one of her lavish dinner parties, with the stunning table settings. Can you?
Yeah, that ain't going to happen. Look, I think that's all the time we have for today.
That's it?
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Phil.
You think I want to be on TV with Dr. Phil where he tells me, oh, you need to be a better son. Get out of here. I was told this was problem moms.
So help me, Todd.
Did someone unhook me?
Again, I'm Dr. Phil, and oh, hell, just forget it. Okay. Of course, in case you didn't recognize them, those were the amazingly talented stars of the new hit primetime show, So Help Me Todd. Academy Award winner Marcia Gay Harden and the star of Pitch Perfect, Skylar Astin. It's a scripted dramedy, which airs every Thursday on CBS at 9 p.m. Eastern. And I'm proud to say it is executive produced by myself, my son Jay, and Julia Eisenman from my production company, Stage 29 Productions. And if you have not seen it yet, why not? I mean, come on. Today is Thursday, so be sure to catch it tonight. It's a really good, fun show, and I think it's something we need right now. And it's a lot about family dynamics, and Todd is really a screw-up. He's lost his license, and his mother's been trying to get it back for 2 years, and she's given him a job, and his ex-girlfriend works for his mother, and it's just very layered, and it's drama, but it's also a comedy, so it's really a lot of fun, and those two have great chemistry together. So remember, So Help Me Todd airs every Thursday on CBS at 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's the #1 premiere this season out of all the new shows. So we're really proud of it. I want to thank all of my guests. For more information on today's episode, or if you want to share your story, we really want to hear it. We want to hear what's going on in your life. Go to drphil.com and tell us what you want help with. And just because we're done here on stage, our conversation from earlier will continue on Facebook, YouTube, and drphil.com, so you can head over there for more about today's topic. And you want to add your voice to the conversation, you know where to find me on all the social media platforms. If you're in the Los Angeles area, go to drphil.com, click on Be Part of the Audience, because we'd love to have you here. And don't forget to follow and subscribe my podcast, Fill in the Blanks. We talk about a lot of critical information that helps you in your life. I really try to talk about things that matter to people who care. Robin does the same thing on her podcast, I've Got a Secret. She has a much better looking podcast studio than I do, and talks to really interesting people. You can catch them both on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.